Microsoft, one of the primary things that we provide, and we've talked about in this, is that we provide the platform. And one of the primary ways that we help address the needs of customers, hit that mission, of Microsoft to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, is through partners. So we're going to move next into a partner presentation. WinWire. So WinWire is a global IT services and consulting company whose focus is helping clients leverage Azure OpenAI services for transformative business growth. Multi-award-winning cloud Microsoft partner, WinWire delivers cloud app modernization and data and AI solutions for their clients. They're proud of its record of leadership, exceptional delivery, and people-first culture. And the company is headquartered in Santa Clara, California, and has 7 offices globally. We can see coming up in video here, we have Vineet Arora, who's joining us. Vineet, nice to have you here. I'll go ahead and go through an introduction. If you want to start bringing up your screen share, that'd be great. So Vineet is the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of WinWire. And he brings over 25 years of experience to his role, including a stint at Microsoft Consulting Services, where he served as a consultant and senior architect for several years. Over the past few months, a significant focus area for Vineet has been generative AI-based solutions. He leads a series of virtual events published on WinWire's website titled CTO Tech Talk Series, where he discusses emerging technologies such as generative AI, latest innovations on the Microsoft platform, and how they can be applied to drive business outcomes. He brings in real-life experiences on how enterprises can leverage Azure OpenAI services to drive innovation and growth in transforming the healthcare industry. And Vineet, with that, I can see your screen. It looks like you're off mute, so go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Matt, and good morning, good evening to everyone, and good afternoon to certain folks from all over the world. Thank you to Microsoft for giving this opportunity to WinWire. What I'm going to cover is just a quick intro. I think Matt did a great job. Thank you, Matt, for that. Who I am, my coordinates, you can connect with me. You can also look at our, so I'm going to use a lot of these QR codes that I think are helpful for such virtual sessions. You can keep your camera ready. This will take you to our healthcare services. And I will be talking about some of those and showing you examples of the platform that Matt talked about, the patterns that Dhanashri talked about, and everybody from Microsoft who is providing these solutions. How do we enable them for our customers? So I have a very short agenda. And with the time that is available, I'll like to focus more on talking about the solutions. But as a cursory, just a reintroduction to WinWire, Matt talked about. We have been in business for a long time, dedicated Microsoft partner. We work very closely with Microsoft on all areas. We have been awarded, different awards in the healthcare space, and we work across the healthcare and life sciences in infrastructure, data analytics, and app innovation practices. If you scan this QR code, rather than boring you with a lot of case study slides, you can actually get to know several case studies and examples of what we have done for our customers in the healthcare and life sciences spaces. But I just want to give you a snapshot of 2, 3 of them before we go into the art of possibilities of what we have been doing for our customers. We work across the spectrum, as I said, doing operational transformation for life sciences company, doing product transformation for companies that have legacy code, legacy applications, and looking at migrating a lot of those solutions to the latest and greatest on the Microsoft platform. We also work with some very large companies who have supply chain transformation needs in the healthcare space. And you may or may not be aware of some of these companies, but if you go to the QR code that I said, you can read more about many of those case studies and how did we help those customers, what is the benefit that we provided to them. Without much ado, I think the primary focus that I want to spend in the next probably 20 minutes or so is various solutions that me, my team, and all across WinWire, we have been working with it. I think 2 questions that come to me as I've been speaking to many customers is, You've been hearing about Azure as a platform for a long time. Of course, you've been using it. Azure OpenAI is also, something that we have heard about a lot, and in the last couple of hours, you've seen a lot, right? What are the key objectives that I should look at, right, as a customer, as an enterprise? And these are the five things that come to the top of my mind, right? When you are looking at building new, innovative, modern applications in the healthcare space, you have to, of course, focus on cost optimization for even other solutions, but improved user experience, operational improvement, automating some of those processes, and improving your business results is the primary focus. Having said that, that's good talk, but how do you come into this entire sort of a journey? And this is one thing that we have seen, and I'll sort of build it up in a few seconds, but the way we engage with our customers and the way I have seen many of them successfully starting to leverage OpenAI services in building these solutions is you start with a sort of an envisioning phase, right? Where you see some of the sub elements where you have to identify what are the various business processes that really make sense to be automated or to be enhanced, right? You have to give focus to governance, security. I've been monitoring the chat for the last couple of hours, and a lot of questions around healthcare being a regulated industry. Of course, we work with it, we know. So you have to define many of those governance and security and compliance requirements. And that's the phase in which somebody like us, along with Microsoft, right, who is providing the platform capabilities, can come in and do advisory and show you real life examples of what other customers have done. Typically, many of the organizations have been moving to the next stage in looking at a POC or a proof of concept or a pilot rollout, right? Where again, you have to make sure that getting your infrastructure ready, getting your models configuration ready, right? And interestingly, you will see there is no concept of training that is mentioned out here. I think it has been emphasized multiple times that when you leverage the foundational models, there is not so much of need for training, but you are able to get started. But there are other elements that you have to define around getting the business involved into it, right? If business is going and using chat gpt's sort of public version, that I of course say is not the always the best mechanism for an enterprise solution, right? And those POCs and pilots that we help along with Microsoft implement helps customers realize what is possible. Then you get the feedback, you refine those, and then you get into this long-term stage, which, to be very frank, very few customers today in the open AI space are there. Of course, if you talk about the traditional AI technologies, there have been a lot of solutions that have been built using that journey. But you start looking at bringing open AI related solutions, the co-pilot kind of solutions, and start integrating it with your enterprise solutions, start building and implementing it into your organization as different kind of solutions. So I just wanted to paint a picture. Many customers ask, where do we start? There are always, sort of experimentations that you can do with your data, but a typical roadmap that defines, and this is probably a 50,000 feet roadmap, right? Every organization will have its own initiatives. Every organization will have its own limitations and compliance requirements. So we work with, looking at something like this and taking it to the next level and defining the roadmap for that organization. One other slide that I want to always talk about is, you know, when I look at, all the capabilities that Azure OpenAI provides for healthcare, right? The generic example is it can generate, it can analyze, it can summarize. You saw some great examples of that. I have a couple of examples that I'll show you. But when you look at some specific use cases, and I have a couple of demos for each one of them, we can look at document summarization from all the medical records, right? You all know those records can be lengthy, can be more complex. How do you process that? There are traditional technologies that can do that, but OpenAI takes it to the next level in providing those. All of us, of course, have some kind of a legacy code, legacy applications that have been built that you may or may not have good documentation around. That's another capability that we have seen in the medical industry, in the healthcare industry, that people use to understand and then enhance and maybe even convert the code to the latest and to the greatest as you're looking at it. And the last use case that you see is something that I'm going to spend 5 minutes on and showing you a complete demo of a complete solution in the healthcare industry that can enhance your entire research experience on the plethora of documents that you'll have across your organization. So as I said, let me spend some time in showing you art of possibilities. We as a company have been leveraging Azure OpenAI and all the AI services and Azure platform for very long. OpenAI from the very beginning, from the early start of this year, I and my team has been focused on building solutions that are enabling specific use cases, but also building demos. One of the things that you will again see is I'm happy to share some of these demos for your usage. So you will again get a QR code for a couple of them that you can scan and you can have access to those solutions so that you can actually get the power of the experience of what the OpenAI can do without even setting it up something at your level. One of the very early examples that I've seen is patient education, right? You do provide a lot of documentations and everything else. This example is keeping in mind that we are not using any company's proprietary information or proprietary data. We have, of course, built it on PubMed, right? I'm sure all of you are aware of this PubMed websites. This is a typical example where you could leverage PubMed plus your own information that is stored within your organization. And that's the last example that I'll show you, where you can provide an interface with, similar example that Dhanashri also showed. But the idea is that you're not doing a search. If you type that into, let's say, a Google search or a Bing search, you'll get a tons of links. What the idea of OpenAI related solution is that it can actually summarize the information right then and there, very focused, but also provide you some additional documentations and articles that may be helpful. So you're not getting lost into a sea of links basically, but you are getting the information right then and there, which is helpful. That's one of the advantages of looking at building using the OpenAI services around document summarization. Of course, all of it is mobile enabled. Just a high level architecture. As I showed you, we are using PubMed API right now. We are using the Azure Cognitive Search and the Azure OpenAI services, both GPT and ChatGPT, to provide this experience that I talked about. The reason I wanted to show you this is one of the very early and I would say a very simpler examples of the solutions, right? The other solution that we look at it is, you have a lot of documents. Dhanashri showed you a couple of patterns, so I'm not going to go back to those patterns, but show you at a very high level a solution architecture is that you have lots of research and medical documentation libraries, right? You may have stored it in your file servers, in your SharePoint libraries, maybe in your Viva vault, if you're using those. And what we are looking at is building different personas-based processing and providing this example. So let me actually show you a demo of that. And this is the QR code, and I'll bring this back. You can actually look at the application yourself. Let me go to that application and show you that. So this is something that we have built as a solution. You could try some of this in the Chat GPT or the Azure AI Studio also. The reason I built this is there is a little bit of a logic that we have implemented using the entire solution. So let me first show you the PDF files, right? So there are two PDF files that I'm working with. And again, I'm not using anybody's proprietary data, any company's proprietary data. And these are old documents that I'm just making sure that I'm picking it up. One is a lot of these informations about the childcare. And then the most interesting one, that's something that I picked up, again, no PII, no sort of personal information. This is a journal example. And you will see a medical discharge summary, right? Sample, I downloaded from the web quite some time back. Difficult for me to sort of compose and understand all of this. If I'm a patient and I've been a patient, somebody else mentioned, right? How do you sort of simplify these experiences, right? So if you were to actually, let me just refresh this page what you'll see is I have actually built this, and I'm going to use this start summary that I talked about, right? And I'm actually using OpenAI services at the back end, some other processing at the back end. And what I'm doing is, okay, just provide, and understand this and compose this reply as an email for my patient so that they can understand it a little bit better and be polite in your tone, right? That's the way, as joking, nobody has used that joke till now, so I will use it, is that the best language that many people need to understand nowadays is English or one of the other languages, in terms of being able to articulate what the system should do rather than writing a lot of code languages. As you will see, it's grayed out, but I have also provided the models and different models. There are cost and capabilities differences that you will see. But what you will see out here that the system has been able to do, and there were questions around, did I train the system on that? No, I did not need to train the system on that. But this PDF, right, which is more complex, getting generated into something as simple as this, right, really, really makes a lot of people's job easier, right? If I were to just go back and let's say, not look at this, but just look at the executive summary, which again is something that I may want to generate and not send it out as an email. I'm not doing anything to the PDF file. I'm not doing anything to the backend code, but I'm just changing what the system should do. It's able to generate a new output that you will see in a minute, which is again more easier to understand. And Dhanashri talked about examples of translation. You could do those on the fly, leveraging other services. But the reason this is very helpful is this is an example of, or this is a demo, right? This is a simple sort of a bullet point, right? Patient was this, visit was here, diagnosis, pre-existing condition. That's it. I can make it a little bit more easier to understand. And you could do this on a whole lot of documents. The other one that I was showing you is, if I look at the other document that I showed, and I have this prompt sort of, right? So the document has tons of information about different kinds of child, right? But I want to maybe look at just the diarrhea related information. And this is the very, very powerful capability where you actually do not need to store the information in different formats. It's an unstructured information, and while this is happening, I'll bring back the PDF for everybody's reference. Right, so there is chickenpox and all these that is mentioned, but diarrhea has been mentioned multiple number of times with all these examples, and that's why I took that as a sample to say, tell me what is it doing, and it's again summarizing it in a very simple format, right, what I can understand from that. I do not need to, the reason also it's a tabular structure. It's a table, right? It's not tabular structure as in the data model, but it's a table in a PDF file that it is still able to process and understand. That's really the power of using something like this. As I said, I'll bring up this. This is an application that has different capabilities. We have tried it with even documents and text files, not only PDF files. So that's an option that I have it available. If I go back and show you this, you could actually choose different document files, and it has some validation built in. You will see if you choose different models, the output will be slightly different because of the capabilities, and of course there is an ROI built into that. I'm going to come back to this. You can scan the QR code. You will, of course, get the recording. You can scan it at that time. You can play around with this application. I'm making it available for everyone to look at that. The other solution that I was talking about is when you really take all these capabilities and take it to the next level, where what we have built as an accelerator for healthcare organizations and actually other industries also, but specifically for healthcare, I'll show you the example, is what we call as knowledge fusion. Many customers have implemented enterprise search using cognitive search or some other technologies. We have taken it and combined OpenAI services and some of the other cognitive services and built this solution that is helpful. If you see the URL below, And that's where we have published this on the internet as a Azure marketplace that some of you know, and you could get to know more about that. But I'd love to show you the examples. This is very similar to one of the patterns that Dhanashree showed earlier, where the cognitive search is doing all the processing of these documents, and OpenAI services of summarization, some generating some recommendations, all of that is also being used. The idea for us always is when you look at any such solution, right? The data ingestion is an important element. You're reducing a lot of capabilities or time that you need to spend, right, in actual processing, because the foundational models are so powerful, right? The technology is so powerful. So you have to work more on the UI elements of this solution, and that's where I'll show you the actual solution, which will give you some idea of, this is an example of what you could build as a research portal within your organization. You could look at in a controlled manner, exposing it to the outside world. But if I type some kind of a question about this, again, the PubMed example that I was showing you, similar to that, right? It's a chat interface, but it is also built some sort of enterprise search capabilities into it. But I'm still not getting just the links, which is, of course, here. I'm also getting a lot of recommendations. So I can actually continue the conversations in different manner, and look at all the other examples that I've talked about, and go through this example and look at the details out here. Look at, as I said, different kinds of filter criteria that I can build on, and that helps me sort of focus on the topic that I'm researching about, and continue to ask the system about it. But I'm getting the documents where some of this information may have been picked in. That's a citation, right? This is an example of a complete solution that you can build, where you have document, you have unstructured data, and you may have, even if you see out here, the videos and others, all different kinds of systems, coming together and building this particular solution. In the interest of time, I will go back and show you one more example, probably quickly. Is as I talked about, many organizations we see also have a lot of legacy code in their companies, right? And the way we look at provide leveraging OpenAI services is to, give me one second. I need to be able to switch the tab. It's running in full screen mode. Um, is a capability that we have built using, again, OpenAI services on looking at either generating. So this is a patient controller application that we built. I'm, again, no customer information is being shown. I'm just showing you a very generic example of, this is the code. And what I can do is I can use any of these languages. We have even done with some RPG code, some COBOL code. I'm sure some of you have some of those in your organizations. That will be helpful to look at that. And what I can do is generate a technical documentation around it. I'm showing you for just one file. I could actually point it to an entire repository, and at a complete sort of either a Confluent or some kind of a wiki can be generated, making sure that you can have people who are building newer solutions on top of it understand what is happening in this particular code. And that is helpful also in the in some of the legacy code organizations. So let it just come up, and I will see if it's going to take time. I'm keeping a note of time. I have just a couple of more slides, and then I'll take any questions. While this is going on, let me bring up this so that some of you can, again, scan this. As I said, it's documentation, but also code conversion. Most of the legacy applications that have been written in older languages can now be converted into some modern languages, again, using a lot of automation that can be built using some of these code that I have. Okay, here it is. So here it generated a documentation where it provided an overview. It said dependencies, class description, properties. I mean, think of a developer, right? Some of you are probably a developers. I've been a developer in my life. Being able to write this clear and concise documentation, it's probably not in our DNA, right? So leveraging a technology like this is something that is powerful. Last demo that I want to show you is being able to leverage again the same technology. I'm using the same C# file and saying, okay, C# is good, but nowadays I'm doing everything in Python. So how do I actually use this same logic in Python? What you will see is that the system is able to understand the capabilities that are built into the code, right? What is the logic? What are the references and everything else? And give you an equivalent Python code that you could again reuse it almost as a starting point. And you will see some of these capabilities are going to be bundled into Visual Studio in GitHub Copilot. But what I'm also talking about is taking an example of doing more factory model mass migration of code that could also be leveraging some of these particular technologies. The demo got, okay, here it is. So here it is. It knows it needs to use, if you're familiar with Python, Flask and Flask RESTful API, and boom, it generated a complete logic on this. But you see this, it also knows that you need to create these modules to store this, and it's giving you some kind of an instruction and guidance, which is very, very helpful as you're looking at doing this in a large scale model, right? That's it from lots of capabilities. As I said, you want to partner with us. We, of course, engage in all those three levels that I talked about. We have our advisory services. We do envisioning workshops where take your business problem and really go into the nitty-gritties of it, work with your technical and business stakeholders, and understand what is it that it will take to leverage Azure OpenAI capabilities and build those solutions. So happy to engage with any one of you. Please reach out to us. Most of you, I'm sure, are Microsoft customers. So you have Microsoft funding available. That is helpful in doing some of these POCs and pilots and get started. So Matt, with the time that I'm monitoring, it's about 4 minutes left. Anything that is come up as a question that I can answer?
Yeah, I wanted to start by saying thanks for the great detail and so many examples getting through those. There are a couple of questions that have come into chat. The first one, it started with a comment, the examples are great, but the question came in, if you could comment on this. Healthcare does have a lot of unstructured data, but also has a lot of structured data. Could you comment on combining the two to be able to get the best results?
Absolutely. So as of today, lots of AI technologies and specifically OpenAI services, right, do not work directly with, let's say, a database. But one of the patterns that Dhanashri showed and we are showing is that your structured data, which is maybe stored in Microsoft SQL Server or non-Microsoft databases also, can actually be indexed and connected through something like an Azure Cognitive Services, right, search service. And then the example that I showed you about knowledge fusion, you will still have access to the same information through that. So it's basically a two-step process where knowledge fusion as its end solution is leveraging Azure OpenAI and the cognitive search service. Cognitive search service is connected to your structured data and indexing that information to be used for the same Q&A example.
Excellent. Thank you. And then I think we have time for one more question here. So the question that came in is, well, it starts again with a comment. It's a great overview with some good use case demos. But the question gets to that from the perspective of cost of running across an organization, and second, integration into an existing app stack. Would you be able to talk a little bit or comment a little bit around the cost of running or integration into an existing app stack?
I can probably touch upon it a few, but would be happy to have a follow-up conversations because cost is very relative depending upon the amount of data that you're processing, the kind of compute that you will need on that, and then of course the kind of user interface that you would like to build on that. Microsoft, as I said, as a platform is providing a lot of capabilities that is more usage based. So you will have to use it for some time and then extrapolate that to say, if I use it for a month, this is the cost, and this will be sort of the approximate cost over time. And we can help you think through that, right? What are the various services that you deploy? Because Azure OpenAI services working on APIs. But storage has a different cost to it. Cognitive search service has a different cost to it. When you run app services, there is a different cost to it. And integration, I'd like to understand it better, but at a high level, any solution that you're building, I showed you the architecture, you're still leveraging, a lot of standard technologies. One of the gentlemen showed the entire diagram. OpenAI fits as a part of the entire application landscape as we see it, right? It's not a separate thing that you have to think about how to integrate it. It is built and parcel of one of the Azure services. So when you're designing your solution, that's an additional component that is available to you to leverage all the capabilities. You don't need to really think about integration. But if I've misunderstood the question, I'll be happy to do a follow-up call. Please reach out to me. I can give you examples of how we have worked with other customers.
Sounds good. And I see on the slide there, you've got the engage with us info that's in there as well. We can get that pasted into chat as well for people to have that. Want to thank you again for your time here, Vineet. Excellent session.